Okay, we'll get the larger one out of the way first. I had to think about this one, and it's a matter of working out what went wrong. What went wrong was too low in the pot. I actually staked it across the rhizome and forced it down onto the media, and at that time it went in the media a bit, so the base was too low in the pot, number one. Number two, it stayed too wet in the winter, which I've now got to avoid. Yeah, so what we had it in before was small bark and moss. So what we've got it in this time is a heavy air cone pot. That's a serious air cone in there, it's almost the whole of the bottom. A very large layer of large bark. If that doesn't get air into the bottom of the pot, I don't know what will. I know a lot of people are probably going to say, why don't you put holes in the side of the pot as well? I haven't really got the appropriate equipment, you know, something like a soldering iron that you can burn holes. The answer is to adjust your watering, quite honestly, but that extra air from holes down the sides of the pot can make a difference to some plants. But what it's going in this time, with what little roots it's got left, nonetheless it's got some. They're just going to sit gently on that. And where are my new growths? Right there. Right, so this is the back of the plant, heavily sealed with cinnamon around there. I wasn't that happy. And what I've got this time is a mix. I've got small bark and some large bark. And guess where the media with the most of the larger bark's going? Around the back of the plant. There's not going to be any activity in that area of the plant. Doesn't need to stay wet, does it? So that's where the media with most of the large bark has gone. Now I can push back against that, making sure my new growths have got somewhere to go, evenly spaced, because I've got three coming out in three different places. And then still with a mix of some large bark and small bark, or medium bark and small bark as it happens, we'll distribute that in and around those roots. And what we won't do is get the base of the plant in the media. Seems to be the thing with the Latorias. You get the base of the plant wet, they're prone to rot. Now I know that, and yet I still did it. So it's sitting on the media, it's not in it. It's just sitting gently on the top. I've got quite a large air gap there. Does it matter? No, it's around the back of the plant. We just top it up gently, otherwise it will be lopsided. So what have we got then? I need to move that slightly. Make sure my new growth out this side has got somewhere to be. Just twist it slightly. I'll move the roots. Okay, so that is sitting on the media now. Could almost say it's a little high, but I'd rather it was a little high than a little low. It's as simple as that. These do not like the base of the plant getting wet, or worse still, staying wet, and even worse still, doing it in the flipping winter, when in my place it's cold. For these plants, it's a bit too cold in the winter. So the answer is, for them to survive that cold, they need to dry fast between waterings, and stay dry for a bit in between. Yeah? Well, you're not going to do that with small bark and moss. It's just not going to happen. Now, I don't want this wobbling around, so I'm going to stake it probably in two places, but the first place I'm going to grab is that cane there, because that has got a new growth either side of it. So that part of the plant, I'd like to say, stay absolutely still. I did bring this stuff out, didn't I? Yes, I did. Yeah. There's a bit of preparation going on, not a lot. And we'll get that pseudobulb strapped, which will hold that piece of the plant still. Because these roots are going to come out. They're going to start off as aerial roots, and they're going to have to work their way down. But I don't want the base of this plant getting wet like it was before, or I'll lose it. You know, you have to just sort of look at the logic. Do you wish your plant to live and thrive? Then you need to do what the plant wants. And this plant does not want to stay wet in the winter for any length of time, but the bare minimum. So it needs a media that dries pretty flipping quick. And the way to get a media to dry quick is to have plenty of air around and good drainage, which is provided by the large bark in the bottom of an air cone pot. So that's that. Let's bring that up a bit. That'll do. It's got that one. I think it's going to need another one around the other side of the plant, quite honestly, because I can still feel it moving. Yes, that's that one. Where else would be a good place to get a stake in? There. Or there. I reckon that one. Right, so we'll have another one in there. And hopefully that will hold it reasonably still. My base of my plant is now raised, and hopefully a media that will allow it to dry out a hell of a lot quicker when my cooler temperatures are there. Now there is a downside. These are drinkers when they're actively growing in the growing season. Well, I'm going to have to water it a bit more often, aren't I? That's my bit. It's worth it. It's worth it. I like my Latorias. And as I said, with the heat wave last year, they didn't go down because they didn't get enough water in the pot. Bearing in mind most of them are in that small bark with moss, or they were. Some of them were, some still are. That was not what did them in. What did them in was too high a light for the plant on the longest days of the year with the heat wave, and insufficient ability to keep up with the humidity. Now, which one was that? Was that the Tokunaga crossed with Aberrans, or was that the Roy Tokunaga White Knight? I haven't got a flipping clue. I'll have to go and look at a video. I did say that, didn't I? I might have to look at a video. I've got the tags muddled. Doesn't happen often. Right, so that's that one. Right, so let's get that out of the way. Because when we're talking about a smallish plant that needs to dry very fast, certainly in the winter, but in the summer can take quite a bit of water, what do we do to accommodate that? That's what we do. That solves the problem. That means the base of the plant can't stay wet, and it's going to dry fast as a consequence. Now, these are reused. These have been used before, but to sterilise my bark, what I actually do is pour boiling water all over it, and you know, give it a really good thorough washing back and front with boiling water. I don't believe anything survives that. As far as I know, it hasn't done so far. Right, so we've got this little one here, and that actually, I'm pretty sure that was the Roy Tokunaga White Knight, in which case the other one must be the Nora Tokunaga crossed with Aberrans. Given that it's a bigger plant, that does make sense, because Aberrans is a reasonable sized plant. But I won't commit to which one's which. Now, I do believe that's a new growth. Certainly hoping it is anyway. So that needs to point to the front of the mount. There's only one of these, so that's going on a tiny little mount. And some of these roots are probably, well, I'd say a fair few of those roots, if not all of them, are going to die. You know, so I'm totally dependent on a new growth. Hopefully the one that I can see is actually a new growth and it's going to push on, and a new set of roots. Otherwise it's doomed, quite honestly. With that poorer root system, the roots are just about good enough to keep the plant hydrated, but only just. And given that it's an upright growing plant, it's not a pendulous plant, the plant needs to go at the base of the moss, base of the bark. What do I want to do? Keep the base of the plant dry in the winter. Where don't we want the moss? Underneath the plant. Now, I know some people think that's a daft idea, but there is method in my madness. If I put moss underneath this plant, eventually it will break down. Well, to get the moss out, I've got a hell of a fiddly job trying to tease it out, or I'm going to have to unmount it. But if I put the plant effectively bare rooted against the mount, and then put the moss on top, if the moss breaks down, it's going to come off pretty easy. And where don't we want any moss? Right around the base of the plant. That's what caused the problem. So I need the base of the plant to be able to dry fast. The moss is going on here purely to help hydrate what is a poor quality root system. Once a new root system gets going, the moss becomes less relevant. A point of order. This may not be true, but it's what I've found from experience. I won't read it in a book, that's for sure. I wouldn't give you that level of detail. But when you mount a plant, I've yet to see the existing roots on that plant attach well. The ones that attach are the next lot, the new ones. The existing ones just sit wherever you put them and do their job, but they don't attach. Now, it may not be true of all plants, but it's certainly true of an awful lot that I've dealt with. You know, they just don't. They do their job, yes, but they don't attach. But the next lot do. The next lot head straight for the mount if they can and grab hold because they're new. Something about the new roots that just does that. And the old ones don't. And the old ones aren't here. Aren't even really alive, not in the true sense. They're just about good enough to hydrate this plant. And I'd say just. You know, it's certainly not a good extensive root system. But I found that with Dendrobiums, if you can get a new growth to push out, you've got it. They'll make it, providing you don't get any rot set in. Whoops! That's not going to do a lot of good on the floor, is it? Butterfingers. Right. I'm going to put the loop on very close to the base of the plant because I want it to stay still. And obviously it's top heavy, all the leaves are up the top. I'll just pull that, that's a slip knot, so that'll just pull tight eventually. Wiggle it until it does. There we go, squeak. Get that nice tight, well tightish, not garrotting the whole plant. And then this won't need to go round many times, it really won't. Not a lot to hang on to. And that's not a lot of moss. That's actually quite a small amount. And all of it is sitting on top of the roots. And we're just going into the growing season when I will have more heat and the fans will be running. So this is going to dry out daily now. You know, not take 9 or 10 days like it was in the pot. This is now a daily job. And I think this plant is going to respond an awful lot better to that type of environment. I'm going to do new tags for these because the tags that are on the plants are the originals. They don't have any meaning to me, quite honestly. They're not like special. They weren't from, you know, traders that I've known well and have gone missing like Chantel or anything like that. Then, you know, can't even remember. So if that's the Roy Tokunaga White Knight, where did that come from? Yeah. I've had more trouble with plants from that company than probably any other place. And it's not fair to run the company down. If you lived in Ecuador where they're based, I bet you could get some absolutely stunning plants. But you have to bear in mind what happens for me to buy one in the UK. First of all, it's got to be packaged up in some shape or form from Ecuador and be brought into the EU. Now that company, along with the company from Peru, they bring a massive amount of plants in to Germany into a holding area basically, and then they move off into all the European shows, including some in England, the RHS show in London, Malvern and possibly some others, to sell their plants. And obviously they start from their base again and go to the next show. And if they run out, then they can't go to any more shows unless they do another shipment. But that's how they work. So their plants have to be bare rooted. They're often wrapped up in stuff, in, you know, damp moss, and they're kept sealed. Ideal place for mould to get going. And then, you know, they're hanging around for some considerable time before you might get your plant. That's not a good way to look after an orchid, quite honestly. And if you buy one at a show towards the end of the season, you may well be buying a plant that really is going downhill. So you need to watch them. RHS show is in April, I believe, and it's one of the earlier shows during the year. So buying a plant from them there is not too bad. But a couple that I bought at Malvern didn't do so well because they've been wrapped up in that polythene type stuff, bare rooted in something that's damp and mouldy and fausty for 2 or 3 months. That's no way to look after an orchid. But those are their choices. They don't, you know, if they want to come over and sell here. Now with this little one here, the only 2 leaves I've got, where's my camera? Make sure you look at, oh, we've got some sunshine, are here, up this end of the plant. But what we've got up this end of the plant are 2 larger bulbs than what we've got up this end of the plant. So we could get a new growth up this end. In fact, there might even be one there. Yeah? So that's why those bulbs have been left on and these old back bulbs haven't been taken off. But, do you know, I said I was going to take that one off and I didn't. Sorry, there's a... I'll show you when I get it off. There's not a lot of point in leaving a bulb that is badly discoloured like that. There's something wrong at the tip of that bulb. Yeah? There's no point in leaving it. It could do harm. Right, so this plant has potentially got 2 leads. The potential for one to come out here, and its latest growth is here. The little bulbs need to go at the back. Yeah, now that means the leaves are going to look back to front for a bit until it gets going, if it gets going. We'll see how we do. Do you know that seriously looks like scale? Oh, I don't know. Perhaps not. It'd be an unusual place for scale to be on a Dendrobium. It's far more likely to be at the base, hiding, lurking. Right, so that's capable of possibly growing in 2 directions, so I want that little piece at the base of the mount. They're both going on the same mount. This one is probably only going to shoot here in this area, and it is a smaller piece. But again, the oldest pseudo bulbs need to go against the mount. So that one needs to go near the top so that the roots hang down. And these are gonna work nice on the mount because as I tie those roots, they're going to point outwards from the mount. That's going to look nice as opposed to squashed right up against it. That will just naturally happen. And those roots there will go down, and the other plant are going to sit on top of them, and they can all tangle up together. And the plants hopefully will grow on together later down the line. But I've got to do this one differently because I've got to hold this top plant in place. Otherwise, I'm not going to be able to do this. Stuff's going to fall around all over the place, and I'm going to have to go around quite a few times. I've got 2 plants, so we'll have a big long piece, and we'll tie that top plant on first and get that established in its right place. We'll put the loop on first this time round. I've got quite a lot of fiddly bits to do getting both of these plants in the right place. So it would be better to secure the plant first and then fiddle. With the other one it was a single plant, yeah, and it was very easy to just hold it with one hand and fiddle with the other one. Right, so we need that near the top, don't we? This is a difficult one because it's got such a huge curve on it, this mount, the fishing line is just going to hang in thin air around the back. You know, that's just how it's going to have to be. But this is a nice piece of bark, I quite like it, and I'd like to use it, so it's getting used now. It's been sitting there waiting for something to be put on it for some time. Been out in the garden with some of the other things. Out of the rain, otherwise, you know, you're just adding to, or you're reducing its lifespan by leaving it in the rain, basically. So this is the smaller plant, and this is the one that's going to lean out nicely. About there, I think. It's not a climber, you know, wherever I put this is where it's going to stay. It will move slightly away from the base as the pseudobulbs develop, if they do. But so I can put it quite near the top of the mount, and it will quite happily be there. Right, so we'll go round once, very close to the base of the plant, and once again a little bit lower down where the roots are. Then we'll untangle everything, and we won't swear because the camera's running. I'm sorry, I just had a panic attack then. I thought I did switch the camera on, didn't I? Because if I didn't, I'm not going back and doing it all again. Right, now this one's going to head off in two directions, smallest bulbs at the back. And I'll leave some space for this one to grow upwards. So some of these roots might be hanging off the bottom of the mount for now, but it's the new ones I'm interested in, not the old ones. So we'll go round there. That's just for the bottom of the roots on the higher up plant. So I'm just trying to hold those two long roots in with my finger so that they're on the mount and not hanging round the back. They won't do any good round there at the moment. And then we can come round onto the second plant and get that nice and secure. So very close to the base, and once more for the roots. Now I already know that I'm not going to have anywhere near enough fishing line to tie the moss on, so I'm going to tie the fishing line off now and start a new piece. Otherwise I'm going to only go round a few more twists and I'm going to run out, and we don't like running out. It's one of the few edits I've ever done when mounting an orchid. It's the swear words that follow from running out of fishing line when I've had enough. You know, when I'm on my third or fourth mount. That's when the language occurs. And it's just tiredness at the end of the day, you know. That's why I don't like doing too many orchids at once. You know, you start getting tired, you get sloppy, and things start annoying you much quicker, much easier. And if you're already in that frame of mind, that's not a good time to start mounting orchids, quite honestly. Right, now we get another nice long bit so that we don't run out. I'd rather waste a bit, quite honestly. I think I've still got probably about 100 metres left on here. I don't even know how much was on it. I was given it, you know, as my son, youngest son, number 2 son, used to do fishing, and when he was getting rid of all his gear because he didn't want to do it anymore, because online gaming is far more interesting for a youngster. He'll learn as he gets older. Obviously all the fishing gear had to go, and as it was going out of the door, practically being given away, I said, I'll have that. So that's where I got that reel of fishing line from. So when people ask what gauge fishing line do I use for my mounts, the answer is simple: I haven't got a clue. I was given it, and I know nothing about fishing line and stuff. It's just what I was given, so that's what happened. Right, we'll have a bit of that. I mean, that sun's going down quickly. Right, now again, I do not want the base of the plants staying wet, so we'll keep the moss away from the base of the plant. Oh, and the other thing I was going to say, with these two mounts in particular, these probably won't get watered for a while now. They're in damp moss, the root systems are not brilliant, yeah? So they don't need water at the moment, they're not growing. So these can be allowed to dry right off, and the main thing that I want to dry right off is the base of those plants. They were soggy, not nice when I got at them, and they've since been washed under the tap, and you know, so I need these to totally dry now. I need this moss to be crispy dry before I even think about watering these. So that's what's going to happen, which at this time of year will be quite easy to achieve. And chances are this moss will be dry by tomorrow morning. But yeah, base of the plant is not in the moss. It's got its own little world to live in. But as soon as it pushes out some new roots, some of those will go in the moss, which is what I want. So I'm just trying to find a bit that catches that fishing line and stops it slipping. Right, so that's that bit. Carefully holding that round the back by winding it round my finger, because some idiot didn't think to put the moss on the other plant before he started. We'll put a little bit up there, one-handed, just holding it in place. That's too much, far too much. Come on, concentrate. There we go. So just enough to keep those roots hydrated, not enough to keep them soggy. Now I've got a bit on the top of the other plant at the moment, but I can hook that off once I've got this to stay put. So, ow. If you tie fishing line around your finger and you can't see what you're doing and you pull, you garrot your finger. Oops. So that's just caught on my scissors. Worry not. I'll just put that around there. All this winding is to do is to hold the moss in place. And I'm not worried if it doesn't cover all the roots. I'm not worried at all. The way this performed in what it was potted in, it wasn't happy. And as it wasn't happy that way, we'll try it this way. Right, I'll show you another little trick when I've got that in place, that knot, so that nothing moves. With a mount like this, when you've finished, there's no way this is ever going to be tight. It's just not going to be that tight. But what you can do is, if you've got a loose end like that, wrap it round the whole lot, right top to bottom, yeah, and come back to your end and tie again. And as you pull, you'll tighten all of those pieces. They'll pull together like that, yeah, and now the whole thing is tighter. Works better sometimes than others, because sometimes you're pulling on bits that, you know, are already tight and the loose bits don't get pulled, but it's worth a go, and it just tightens everything up a little bit. Right, so that's that one. Now we did get some moss on the top of the plant. We'll look that off, otherwise the pseudo bulbs will be sat in it, which we don't want. It's alright if it tucks back down behind them, that's not so bad. There we go. Dangly bits can come off, they're not required. And that bit hanging out the side. They'll only fall off when I water it. I just want to pull them off now. Loose bits. And that's what we've got. Yeah, I'm quite happy with that. Got some roots getting air around them, some roots under the moss, some are bare, so they'll dry fast, and hopefully that's going to be a happy bunny and get some new growths going alongside some new roots. But that's got enough roots to hydrate it, so it should do okay. And which one was that? That was the one with two plants, so that one I definitely know. That's the Macrophyllum variety Turnertense. Got a feeling that was a big box orchid. It'll be in my notes if it was. If it was, thank you Beatrix. Some of them are doing okay. In fact, some of them are doing absolutely fabulous. That one I do believe, well, if it's got an Equigenera label, I must have bought it, or I assume I did. And that one's a Klassen Orchidine. It's Netherlands nursery. So where the hell would I have met them? RHS or Malvern, one or the other. Anyway, I will get the tags sorted out eventually. So we've got one in a pot and 2 mounts. The one in the pot isn't actually going to get watered yet because I want that base to dry out. Yet again, it was wet, it's been under the tap. I need that to dry now before I get watering that. And when I water this for a while, I'll make sure I only water the media and no water gets on the base. Let's give it a chance to dry right off. And then soon we should get new roots from those new growths. And on these two, hopefully we'll get some new growths. I'm pretty sure that is a new growth on there. Now that it's in the sunlight, you can probably see it. I'm pretty sure that's a new growth. And if it is, it's facing away from the mount and the roots will get going soon. This one, too, we'll have to wait and see. Difficult to tell. Okay, so that's those three Latoria types, or 2 definites and a possible, although I'm pretty sure Macrophyllum is a Latoria type. And I'll see you next time. Thanks for dropping by. I expect that ended up being quite a long one. So be it.